Welcome back, everybody, to the Wild Faith Podcast. My name is Evan Bungum. Tonight, I am joined with my co-host, Luke Timmons, and we have a fun and exciting episode for you guys tonight. We are going to be diving into early season bow hunting setups and talking a little bit about ducks and bucks and what we have coming for the season for you. So, Luke, how are we doing tonight?
Good. I thought we were completely going to be talking about ice fishing, so I'm not prepared at all.
You know what? That is coming. It'll be here before we know it.
I hope not. I hope it takes a long time to get here. Lots of ducks and bucks that need to be hunted.
That is true, though. I did see someone post, I don't know if it was on Moultrie or who posted it. Somebody did, but it was basically like looking forward to these frosty, it was like a snow-covered field. I was like, yeah, I'm excited, but not that excited yet. I do want to, that's my favorite time to hunt, but at the same time, It's like, let's pump the brakes. Let's enjoy September, October, a little bit of November, and then we can get there.
Yeah, I think we talked about like the last one or two of the pods, but I am completely done with the heat and the humidity. I mean, it's just like, can we just get? We were putting stuff away tonight, and I looked at Jen. I'm like, I'm ready for it to be 60 degrees at sunset and no humidity, because those are like those perfect nights where you like shorts and sweatshirt. Like that's my jam.
It's been nice the last week. I will admit it has rained in we've had a couple of fronts come through, but it has been fairly cool in the evenings. Wow, we have to cut that out.
Yeah, I think there's some, there's a lot of storms kind of blowing in here. I'm just looking at the weather. It looks like we're supposed to get a good couple inches probably over the next week here. And with
get
that,
your food plots in.
Yeah, and that's the plan. I think it looks like Saturday's and some thunderstorms, so probably either Friday evening or Sunday getting them in. So
nice.
It should be good. I'm excited. This is kind of like my first go around at doing food plots, like kind of not on my own, but not basically with you. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing though. I mean, like, that's the fun part about this year of where, it is a little bit of a gamble. I always shoot for that last weekend of July, second to last weekend of July to about the second week of August, where wherever you get rain, you just plant and you just kind of go by the edge of that. But, for you, where it's at least nice for at least your food plot at the house is you can run a hose to it, so you can get that in anytime.
That one's easy, but it'll be. It's I don't know. It's kind of not scary.
How many acres are you guys putting in?
I knew you were gonna ask me that, and I knew I wasn't gonna do it. So I think we have 3, 4, 5 and a half.
Oh wow!
6.
You got some work ahead of you.
Oh yeah. I was talking to Joey about it and trying to line stuff up and get things ready. But yeah, we got quite a bit of stuff to plant, so it'll be interesting.
So for your guys' setup, then, what do you guys have cooking for like access to equipment? Are you guys running bag seeders? Do you got a seeder, or what's your guys' kind of plan for that?
I don't think they have like an actual seeder, but I mean, like a similar tractor to what you guys have, sprayer,
sure.
4-wheelers side by side. But yeah, bag seeders is what I'm assuming. I don't know. I've never planted with these guys, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna be, I was like, I gotta line in for some seed, and I'm hunting this new property with these guys, so it's like, what do you want, kind of thing. So
that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be kind of interesting. We did kind of just what I figured that would be kind of a dummy proof setup with not like a ton of like over the top work that you'd have to put into it. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting, and I mean, it's always fun just to get back in the woods, start moving stuff around.
For sure.
I'm even just looking in my backyard, like I need to get my stand up and just trim some shooting lanes and just start thinking about deer.
It's happening, man. It's going to be here before you know it. And the cool thing about down there too, I mean, you guys are blessed as well with very good soil, so shouldn't be too hard to get it to grow as long as you got the rain.
Yeah,
that'll be a big one.
Yeah, that's a testament. My wife's garden has just been like, we can't keep up with it.
Yeah,
we have so much like produce. It's like, okay, now what are we gonna can? Because we're running out of like, we have more tomatoes than we know what to do with. Cucumbers. I mean, you can only make, feel like so many pickles before you're just too many. But no, I mean,
I don't know what the deal with our pickles have been, or I shouldn't say our pickles, our cucumbers have been. They were doing really well, and then they got some weird fungus that Autumn tried killing, and then we just kind of halted our production. We've had tomatoes on our years, though, which has been fun. Yeah. Nora loves them, Millie loves them, I love them. So,
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy to see how it's just like, I mean, we definitely planted too much. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's like,
well, how many of those raised beds did you guys have? I can't remember. Was it 2 in the back or 4 in the back?
4.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're 4 by 8 footers. So I mean, they're good size, and we definitely stuffed them full, and we'd probably do 3/4 of what we have, maybe. So not like we didn't like go crazy, but definitely, between that and eggs, it was like I sent Nate home with 18 eggs, I think, over the weekend, some salsa and stuff. And she's got her salsa recipe dialed, but good. Kind of going off tangent here on gardening, but it's
have you had any issues with deer though?
No, I put up a little fence, and it's kind of funny.
Nice.
The deer really don't come up into our yard, which I was kind of surprised about. I do think we're gonna probably put in some apple trees here.
Okay.
Maybe this. I don't know. I gotta look it up. I've never planted apple trees, so I don't know if
I'd say you could probably get by late
fall
or early spring is probably your best.
Yeah, but so I mean, we may put some in like this later this fall, or just wait, like you said, till spring. But some of our neighbors down the way have a few apple trees, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the deer in our yard every night." Day. I'm like, "Oh, do they hunt?" But so we'll put some apple trees back there. But now I'm starting to have bucks show up on camera. Nothing.
That's good.
Nothing too crazy, but at least it's nice to just see them moving around, and it just gets me excited for like a month. I mean, that's crazy. That's almost a month to the date.
Yeah, I think, is it the 17th? No, 17th or 19th. It opens up in Minnesota, I think, this year. So it's a little bit later. I have to actually Google 19th. That. I think it's the 19th. That's the Saturday. I
don't think it's the 12th, but never know.
Yeah, it's sneaking up fast. I mean, it's one of those things where I look at this next month for the farm where it's kind of telling where usually, I mean, we've had a couple bucks on camera that are really nice 3.5-year-olds that'll be, I would say, shooters for sure next year and 2 years, but I have yet to see a shooter on camera, which is, I'm not concerned, but now if we get to be about August 27th going into like the first weekend or opener, even if I have not seen one yet, it is usually it's not a good sign. Yeah. So, but there's always, I mean, like I look at, Babe, who Dylan shot last year. So shout out to Dylan again, but like he didn't show up back on the farm, I think, until October 10th, I think it was last year. And then he stuck around the section for the rest of the year until he got shot. I think that was the second weekend at gun. Or no, that was the first weekend. Forgot about that.
Yeah.
So
weekend.
Never know. It's still early, but this is a great, we went and drove around this past weekend when we were home, and we probably saw, I don't know, after that storm blew through, we probably saw 25 deer out in the fields.
Nice.
No big ones. Yeah, it was fun. At least we got the drive around the Ranger and we glassed for a solid probably hour and a half and saw a bunch of deer. So that was fun.
Interesting. I saw, speaking of glassing, you can, I think SIG is the one that has like the image stabilizing binoculars. But there's this other company, I'm blanking on the name, but they made I'm blanking, an attachment for, like a spotting scope or binos for your phone. Oh. Which is fine and dandy, but they have their own app or something with a camera, You know what I'm saying? Like it would access your camera through your phone.
Yeah.
But somehow the app stabilizes the video.
Oh, we gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's interesting. Gosh, dang it. I think I followed him on Instagram.
Oh, we're gonna figure it out now. It's not Meg. It's not Megview, is it?
Nope. It's one I had never heard of.
So this one says that it does it. What's it called? This is let's see, capture footage through blah, blah, blah. Now Sorgeries binoculars?
Nope. It's not like a binocular company.
Oh. Wow, that's got me. It's piqued my interest now.
Here it is. Epoch.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Okay. I've seen these guys before.
Yeah, so it's stasis stabilization in their app.
Interesting.
Yeah. If you go to their website and hit stasis stabilization, it has like a video of a pronghorn sitting there, and then you hit the no shake button and it's like crystal smooth.
Well, I might be using that out west. Can you just use the app with a different, like I have the Megview for my spotting scope and for my binoculars. I wonder if you could just use the app and get the stabilizer.
Sure, because how would the app know if you're using their attachment or not?
Yeah, Epoch, Mount Meg. Well, I'm gonna screenshot that quick because
I know I was looking at. I was like, gosh, that is pretty cool because,
stasis stabilization. Yeah, so anybody listening, I'm watching the video right now
with the pronghorn. Kind of crazy.
Wow, that is wild.
Some AI wizard stuff there. I don't know.
There's some wizardry happening there, but it didn't even punch in though, really, which is interesting because normally those, you think of like a camera for digital stabilization, it usually punches in like one or two times, and that looks to be it. Doesn't.
It looks like it's
that.
pretty solid. Now it could be touched up a bit, but I don't know.
I mean,
I think it's worth trying it out. I don't know if it costs.
Be curious if it's. We're gonna find out. Oh, I don't have the App Store on my computer. Well, that's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So,
well, there you go. There's a free little nugget.
Yep. But no, it just gets me excited. Obviously, we'll be dropping ducks and bucks here at the end of the month, and then kind of running that in tandem with the main pod. We just need a couple more weeks of summer.
Couple more weeks
before we go crazy with two episodes a month or a week. And
well, it's good. I think it gives us a little bit of time. I mean, I know I need to get out and shoot my bow more. This past weekend we got in, I would say probably 95% of our food plots, which I feel very good about now, just because of all the rain that we have in the forecast. So that's another thing off my chest that I can just breathe easy about. But at the same time, it's still got to get stands ready. Still need to shoot out of my saddle. There's a endless amount of things that I feel like it's a never ending to-do list before the season comes, but it's going to be here fast.
Oh, it's going to be here tomorrow. It feels like, which is kind of why we wanted to start moving on getting, good relative content out, because I feel like sometimes I feel like, oh yeah, we should talk about, this thing. And then it's like, oh, we should have done that a week ago kind of thing. So I think getting ahead of the schedule here a little bit. And we were kind of talking before we hopped on, and specific with this episode, obviously we're talking food plots and early season, tree stand placement, and how do you kill basically an early season buck. But my beef lately with podcast episodes or YouTube videos is I'm like, okay, I want to learn how to do this. I listen to it for an hour and change or however long it is, and I'm like, okay, there was 5 minutes in there that I actually cared about, and I had to sit and listen to the whole thing to get that 5 minute nugget out of there. So I feel like what we're going to want to try and do with these is just be super just in your face, this is what you should do, or at least what we think you should do, when, where, why, and how, and just lay it out there as easy as possible. So it's you could be okay, I really only care about food plots. Boom, I got what I needed. Now I know what, because I feel like sometimes you're sitting there especially someone new into food plots. It is, Like for me, like we were just
It's
talking about, like,
intimidating.
I'm nervous because I'm like, oh, I don't know. But if so, going down that vein, if I'm a beginner and I've never planted a food plot before, like what would you plant for like a simple early season kill plot? We're talking mid September to like, mid October.
Sure. When I think of early season food plots, excuse me, I'm fighting the cold. When I think of early season food plots, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can plant. And I think it's also, too, it's relative to where geographically that you are. But for the most part, we're speaking Midwest terms. That's what we've kind of always have talked about, like on this podcast. But I don't think it necessarily matters between hill country, farm country, or flatland, wherever you're at. Like we'll just tailor it into like farm hill country, kind of relative to where you're at in La Crosse. When you're thinking early season, these bucks aren't living in the thickest, nastiest stuff that exists yet, just because they're not wanting to rip up their velvet on their horns. Now, for us, unfortunately, our seasons don't start until the second weekend of typically September. So for us, most of the time, they're kind of going through that staging area already of where they're transitioning a little bit, but they're still kind of sticking to those early season habitats where, when you're thinking early season food plot, I like to think of radishes. I like to think of things that they're going to eat. So if we're talking domain, we're talking like illist, even a no BS mix of where you're getting a little bit of that clover, a little bit of chicory, a little bit of those simpler ones like oats, stuff that's going to grow really easy, that is palatable on that early season time frame. That could be beans, that could be winter peas, any of those type of green mixture type mixes. Could be buckwheat. Buckwheat's actually like one of my favorite ones for early season. Seems to be some of the best stuff on our farm. Oh my goodness, sorry about that. But when I think of early season food plots, I think it's more focused on where those food plots are to relative to where that's staging them out to go out to those big ag fields is probably more relative than anything that you probably would plant, just because it's where those deer are basically working from cover to staging area. If you get a water hole mix in there on that way to that destination food plot, that little honey hole or hidey hole food plot, whatever they call them, or a kill plot. They have a lot of different names for them. But where it's just that little area where they're going to go grab a quick bite to eat. If like I said, if it's clover, radish, like that no BS mix has everything. It has oats. It's got ladino clover. It's got chicory in it. It's got a little bit of everything in it. Of where you're basically kind of just getting a little bite to eat before they're heading out to that destination where, really when we're talking early season, usually typically that's the maybe last 15 minutes, 10 minutes before last shooting light, before they move out to the big egg. But I think, food mix is relative. I don't think it's the most important. I think location is probably the most important to where you're hunting those edges, getting you tight to those destination foods. Because you got to think that the time frame of what you have to actually hunt that deer, if it's that last 30 minutes, he's not going to travel 500 yards in that last 30 minutes. He might only be going 60, 100 yards max.
Sure. So when you're talking about, where to put it, you're talking edges.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you, in your opinion, early season be like to intercept that buck in that last, golden hour?
Yeah. I like like I said, like I'm speaking kind of specifically, ag country in more particular, like, this year for us, the farm on the north side is surrounded by beans, which is awesome. Like usually those are the best seasons that we'll have, because usually those beans will stay relatively green until about mid-October, and they'll start kind of transitioning off, and that's usually when our brassicas are at their peak, or all of our green plots are usually at their best of when they're eating them. But I'm kind of hunting those staging areas leading to those pinch points. Let's just jump on a map and I can show you here. How do you do this? You go to share, and then we go to that one. Let me go to here and there you guys can see it. This is the farm. So we have laid out this year. So when I'm looking at this right here, so this whole north side is all in beans this year. Mm-hmm. This is corn over here. We got a little bean plot here. This is all beans out here on the west side too. And then everything to the south of us is all in corn this year. So how we have the farm kind of laid out, you can see that we have three big destination plots. Really, these are the two biggest ones. But then we have all these kind of kill plots. These are a little bit bigger than kill plots, but we have all these other kill plots in here. And like this one in particular, gosh, I can't get through talking. This one in particular is kind of a sweet one because how this woods is laid out in here, we've cleared out a lot of timber through here, so it's not super thick anymore, and it's fairly open. Same thing with a lot of this cover in here. It's a lot more open, and all this stuff back in here is fairly open in the CRP mix. So a lot of these deer really hug tight to this backside of this thick cover along this edge. And coming through here, they're working their way out to this one is almost like a kind of a staging area. It's across the road. This is another bean plot, but this big bean plot usually holds a lot of deer. Holds a lot of deer throughout the summer, going into that early season fall. So for this one, for us, usually these bucks will be bedded back just about 10 yards back into cover where it's kind of fairly open in here. And either they'll come through and they'll come up through our paths that we have through here. They'll stage out in this food plot. We got a water hole right here. We got a licking branch right here. We got another scrape tree or scrape cedar branch that's sitting right here. And then they'll take this through here. They'll work their way back out to that main destination plot before the end of the night. And we've got 3 different stands. This one's actually here now. And we got these 2 stands here and the stand here. And they'll kind of work their way through cover. And they'll, I think this one right here, we have radishes basically kind of just harrowed on this edge. And the rest of this is clover mixed with a little bit of radish through up in here. But we just kind of, it's one thing I do like to do. Anything that I have within bow range, I try to have radishes tight to where, just because the deer love to eat them first. And they might only spend, 10, 15 minutes in this food plot. If that, sometimes maybe even 5 minutes. And they're just grabbing a bite quick here and then they're hightailing it. This, there isn't, well, it's not there anymore. This house doesn't exist anymore. So this has kind of become kind of wild now to where they'll bebop across the road. But this is another good one right here too, to where in this woods, we've done a lot of clear cutting to where it's fairly open in here. Same thing with the CRP. We used to go up and down these trails all the way through here, and we stopped doing that now. This whole area is inaccessible unless you really want to get in there. And kind of how it's worked out now is there's a lot of bedding that's focused kind of in this inner circle. And especially early season too, we get a mixture of bucks and does. Those does stick a little bit closer to this destination plot for us right here. But this stand, we actually have another stand that's back in this back corner here too. But basically, these deer are coming out. Either they're taking a path to this destination plot, or usually they're coming out. We have another food plot. I don't have it on here, but we have another food plot that basically goes like this and connects. And then this one's maybe like a 1/16 of an acre. And this one's just in clover and chicory this year. But this is another good one to where they'll basically transition kind of either up into this destination plot and they'll go out to the bean field up to the north, or they'll come out through here and they'll basically work their way out to the east. And obviously we're hunting these relative to what's the best wind for us. But it does seem to be, where if you can be tight to where they're bedding, that's the one reality of the early season where how our farm kind of lays out. It depends on the year, but typically our farm will hold 2 to 3 mature deer. And that's, mature deer that I would probably want to shoot every year. It holds a lot more deer than just that. And this is only a 48 acre farm, so it's not big. And this is egg country too. So we don't have, you can see it, we don't have a lot of cover around. There's a lot of drainage ditches. And it seems as the season goes, these deer start to push out a little bit further to those outskirts. But those does usually kind of hold kind of tight. But in this early season, like we're talking here right now, you want to try to be as tight to that bed as you can be for that deer. And, we have cameras scattered all throughout the farm to where you kind of draw your best, throw your dart at the wall and figure out where he's bedding at. Like in particular, like when we have a mature deer that usually uses the central part of the farm, good chance or not, either he's bedding somewhere back into this thicker brush. I mean, you've been back in here somewhere on this edge of this pond, somewhere down here, or they're bedding somewhere down in this kind of this oxbow of where the creek is. And, as a crow flies, that's about 85 yards. And, within the last 35 minutes of light, they're usually up on their feet, that last hour. But in that last 35 minutes of light, for him to go 85 yards to get out on that bean field is pretty realistic. Now, hunting somewhere like, we have a kill plot like down in here, like hunting here and knowing that there's a deer somewhere bedded in the central part of the farm down here, for him to go 250 yards, that last 30 minutes, there's a good chance you're not going to see him in time. But no, I think the biggest thing is, I think you just got to be tight to where that deer is bedded at without, it's early season too, so you don't want to blow out your stands for the year or blow that deer out of there. But I always walk on eggshells early season, and really I'm only going to the kill a deer if I know he's killable. And, I'm going based off of obviously trail camera photos. If I know I've got one daylighting, somewhere around here, or, down in here on this stand, we got another food plot down here too, or we've got another stand. I don't have it in here yet, but it's somewhere down here that where he's daylighting, last 30 minutes of light. It's happened many times all the way up to like September 28th, of where I would consider that still early season, where that's a killable deer. Otherwise the hard thing is, everybody gets those pictures at 2 a.m. in a bean field, somewhere down here or somewhere up there, where it's like, well, that deer could be coming from 2.5 miles away to eat those beans, especially if it's 2 a.m. I'm looking at relative time frame. If it's 30 minutes after first light or 30 minutes before first light, that deer is killable. You got to figure out where he's coming from.
Yep. So going back, because I want to jump into tree stands here now, but going back to food plots quickly, what would you say is like the biggest misconception on food plots?
I think the biggest misconception is probably people debating about what to plant and just getting hung up on that, of knowing that they got to have beans or they got to have corn, or I definitely think deer have a palate for what they enjoy. And in particular, like for us in the egg country, I think our deer are a little bit spoiled. I still haven't cracked the code of why they don't crush brassicas like they do in northern Minnesota or maybe northern Wisconsin, or what that is, and they still eat them. But I think the biggest thing is people get worked up on what to plant, then they wait to plant, then they miss their planting window. And I just think as long as you can get something in the ground that is palatable, and like once again we talk about it all the time on here, like that no VS mix from Domain is so good just because it has a little bit of everything that the deer want. And I just think people just hold back and not wanting to put something. And I think people underestimate too the relative to like size. In particular, like this 48 acre farm, we hunt about 4.5 acres, and that's about the max that we'll have on here, just because that's pretty much all the room that we have room for. But I think people plant too small and think too big to where they're wondering why they're not holding deer. I mean, like a deer, like for example, like if I planted this in the beans and I planted this in the beans, and we're talking, this is 0.75 acres. This is an acre. I mean, that would be gone by October. They'd level that. I mean, this is 0.75 acres of corn that I already planted this year, and it's already gone. I mean, they've eaten it. Every corn on almost every ear that exists is already gone. So I think having expectations of what you realistically can plant, I think, is a big one, and understanding like what you have size to plant and just being okay with that. I mean, like if you have a 10 acre farm, be okay with having maybe a quarter acre food plot.
Yeah.
And just knowing that that's the max that you're going to get out of it. But if you have a 100 acre farm and you can plant 10 acres, well, there you go. Then you just know that you can have the capability of holding deer throughout the entire season. And I think being attentive to that too, where it's like, if I had a 10 acre farm, I'd rather have a strategic food plot on its way to, transitioning deer out of wherever, because already on a 10 acre farm, those deer aren't living there year round. They're kind of moving in and out of there. But a 100 acre farm, you probably have deer that are living there year round, using that food plot year round, where size does make a big difference, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, yeah, the biggest thing that's like not necessarily scared me off from food plots, but like the biggest thing is like you always see on, you know, Instagram, the like you're just talking like these giant pieces where they're basically farming, you know,
Yeah.
food plots. And so, you know, I think the biggest thing is like you don't need all that. You don't even need a tractor really. You know, for depending on the size of your plot, but like you could get by, I think, without a tractor, probably on anything less than half an acre for sure, you know, for a food plot size. And like I like just going out with a sprayer, you know, backpack sprayer, even those handheld, you know, $20 ones from Menards, spraying with some glyphosate. And then I actually figured this out the hard way, but our old lease, I took a weed whipper out there to like weed whip some and then spray and then cut some shooting, you know, or walking lanes or whatever. Well, it was like middle of August and it was probably 100 degrees out, and I just burned through this weed whipper, and I was being dumb and was just actually using like the string, and found out like you could buy these like metal head attachments that got like 3 prongs, and they'll cut through trees, you know, little saplings anyways, and that's been an absolute game changer for just clearing my food plot out when we first moved in a year ago. And it was just like, it just blew, like if I would have just took a weed whipper back there, I'd have been out there for days. And that thing just clears everything out nice and quick. So yeah, I mean, I think like the biggest thing is like, you don't really even need a 4-wheeler. I mean, you just have to carry a lot of stuff, but you know what I mean?
It's all
like
time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like how much time do you want to put into it, and then it's, you know, just being realistic too with like what you were talking, like you don't really need the, you know, a 3 acre or even an acre food plot on a 10 acre piece, because you may only need that little 1/4 acre kill plot to just hold that deer for 5 minutes right before he gets into the, you know, the main food source. So no, that's all good,
one thing too to say too with food plots, I think where people do them wrong is they just assume that just because I plant a food plot, I should hunt over the food plot. Now, I will say with like all the food plots that we have, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think out of those 11 food plots, 3 of them are destination plots. You know, they're bigger than almost an acre. The rest are kill plots. I think realistically, we probably only have 7 stands out of the 17 stands at our farm that are on food plots. And some of those aren't even over those food plots. They're on that transition to those food plots. To where I think a lot of times too, people shoot themselves in the foot because they only hunt over the food plots, where it's like the deer are going to get there when they want to get there. But it's also too, it's like you can hunt that transition area to where they're making, you know, where they're spending that time, if it's, you know, 25 yards on the field edge, or if it's 25 yards on the woods, or they're working that scrape that's just down the trail that they just haven't got there yet, where it's like you just got to be able to hunt your farm, know your farm. You know, the biggest thing is obviously, like, I think too, a lot of people take for granted is they hunt bad winds over their food.
Yeah.
You know?
So, because now we're getting right into the tree stands. What is the, where would you put, like, if you could just put one tree stand out, where are you putting a tree stand early season bow hunting?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would sit on if I had to just exclude the farm and just think of any other random piece, if I could draw up a perfect spot, I would want to be probably close to beans, somewhere in like a, you know, like if we had to take my hand, like, where's the camera here? Hold my hand like this, to where like that inside pocket where I would have probably some either like not super heavy timber, but like especially that early season when grass is really tall. I feel like when I go walk, you know, we're talking specifically on like the river and stuff, but like when I walk those river edges where that canary grass and all that grass along basically like the water edge is, you know, it's not 10 feet, like 7 feet, 6 feet high. It's that super tall grass where it's not messing up their antlers, and it's thick enough where it's that green foliage cover where they're bedding tight in there, where it's like, I'd probably want to be 75 yards off of some tight cover like that. Sure. Have egg or something if it's a food plot or destination food plot, if it's an egg field, wherever it is, somewhere there, and where I can blow my wind back over that river, or I can blow that kind of in a dead zone, and then just basically hunting that, that corner of that field where you're going to be coming out at. Otherwise, thinking big timber aspects, I mean, I would, if I'm hunting in the hills, I'm just hunting those scrapes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like a key thing that I try to think about it, and I've heard some other guys say it before, is you could almost argue that a mature buck is is easier to kill early season. And I mean that in the sense of like, he's about as patterned as he's likely going to be all season, early season. Because he likely hasn't gotten a ton of pressure. Obviously, we're not getting any phase of the rut yet where he's starting to kind of meander out a little further than his home range. But it's like, if you could figure out bed, water, food, and then figure out a way to cut him off in between either bed, water, food, that's those what we're talking about, like with these kill plots or these inside corners for like a staging area where, and that may be, like, in your opinion, if you were to stand on the edge of a bean field and a timber, how far in is a staging area? Because you always hear people talk about it, but I'm like, is it 50 yards? Is it 100? I mean, or is it just kind of just maybe both?
I think it's a little bit of both, and I was going to kind of go down a tangent with this too, of where I think your style needs to change a little bit too, of where
settle down, buddy.
You can't live in both worlds. I feel like wherever, like, you look at like the Dan Infaults of the world, or the Cody DeQuistos, where it's like, I'm going to kill that deer in his bed, right? You're talking swamp, or we're talking far. It doesn't matter. Like, Dan's a killer. He's the best of the best of them. That's why he is who he is. Of where it's like, he knows where that deer's bedding. I mean, he's sneaking in and getting within 60 yards of that deer. He's watching that deer get out of his bed, and he's killing that deer. But now when we're talking, general like this, of where I don't know where that deer's, I have a general idea, but I don't know where he's bedded at. I'd like to think, probably right in that tweener area of where it's, is that 60 to 100 yards, somewhere in there. And that's just where you got to use your best judgment of trying to understand of, between trail camera photos, doing your, early season scouting of figuring, like, this is where potentially sometimes too, like what's it called? Where you dump a buck? What's that called? Where you bump them out of your bed? Bump and dump? I think that's what it's called.
Oh, like a scent bump, or I'm trying to think of. I'm literally can see the hunting
of
public
like where you're getting in that area of where it's like, think of the hunting public. Yeah, like they found that bedding area in the middle of that CRP field, which was just whatever, it was like those 3 trees in there, and there was just buck after buck that stood up in there, where it's just that undisclosed area where it's like, all right, I think there's some deer beds in there. You could go scout it out or bump them out, whatever it is, and just kind of get an idea for it. They might not come back for a week, but that's the crappy thing about early season, where it's like, you don't have time, it's like he might only be in that pattern for 2 more days, Sure. That's where I think it's all relative of like, if you're going to kill a deer early season, you have to have your ducks in a row. You gotta play everything to a T. You got to have all your research done, and you kind of got to get lucky. And the one thing I wanted, that you said it earlier too. I mean, another thing that I think we haven't talked about at all is water. Water's a big one. Doesn't have to be water holes, but water's a big one. And other things outside of food plots, like apple trees, like those are great, right? Or, persimmons, there's pear trees. I'm trying to think of all the other fruit trees that exist. Plums kind of drop that early season, of where those are just those sneaky food sources that you don't think about, that are typically back and cover that hold deer for X amount of time.
So how close, talk staging areas here, how close are you? I mean, it's completely dependent, but like you're just talking about on how patterned this deer is, but like how close should you actually try and get to a buck's bedding area? Like,
okay,
we're talking like 20 yards, or
oh man, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, or are we like,
if you're hunting from the ground, maybe.
Yeah, but like, we're talking 20 yards or like 75. You know what I mean? Like, what's that again, like what's the sweet spot for staging area is great. What's the sweet spot for his bed?
This once again like goes back into like knowing your terrain, knowing your trails, knowing where you're hunting of where it's like, okay, so I'm going to show the map here just to show the example here, just to make this more crystal clear. So let's just say this little drainage right here, which has some trees in it. You've been in there. Let's just say I know there's a buck that lives somewhere in here. He's got 6 or 7 beds. You know, it actually is kind of a funnel that drops down in here. Let's just say I know he's got 6 or 7 beds in here and he lives somewhere in this 20, 30 yard little bubble, we'll just say. I think if you can have a good wind that's not blowing in, obviously, and you know where that deer wants to go. Let's just say we know that deer wants to transition to walk this fence line, and we know he wants to get out to this bean field out here. He's going to cut through the church. Do that for example, or it's like, all right, let's say I've got a, pretty typical early season wind. Let's say it's a front wind. Let's say it's like a southeast wind. So my wind's going to be blowing. It's going to be coming up like this. It's a southeast wind. He's going to walk with that wind in his face. I would want to probably get within 75 to 80 yards, closer if I can. But obviously we're talking private ground. So I've got tree stands set up. Let's just say you don't have a tree stand set up though, but I know there's a trail that cuts through this oxbow in here somewhere. Yep. I want to try to sneak in here and get as tight as I possibly can. And that's all whatever you feel comfortable with. I mean, if you have your setup dialed and you can get in quiet and not make any sound, because it's funny once you get in tree line and you're like, oh, it's windy outside, and all of a sudden you get in tree line. Quiet. It is pretty quiet. You're like, oh, well, that pretty sure it can't be, it can't be too loud. But at the same point in time too, I've been pretty tight to deer before where, they do have really good hearing, but you might have a crick running, or there might be some other resources, guys out working in the field where you get that cover noise of where you could be, you can get away with a little bit more noise. But I don't know. I like to think probably 75 yards, 80 yards is probably a good buffer zone, but it's all relative. It's all how quiet can it be. If you're sneaking into a private land setup and, you've got a stand dial and you just got to climb up at a ladder stand, then there you go. Yeah.
That's a quick little side note to just hit on is make sure your setup is dialed if you're hanging and banging, because I've been, especially early on in my saddle hunting career where I'm like struggling with something and it's like 30 minutes. And I'm like, well, guy, is it even worth sweating. It at this point? And that's the worst.
That's the worst.
You're just sweating. That's the other tough part about early season, that and the bugs. But I mean, I think you hit on a key thing here. Key thing there is you don't have to hunt him in his bedroom. You need to hunt him in the hallway, like where you were just talking about. Like this is where he's trying to go. This big, destination food source of beans. This is where he's here. I don't want to hunt him right here. I want to hunt him somewhere in between in that hallway of where in that hallway gives me the best setup, whether it's not whether it's one of these, it's all these. It's wind, it's access, it's what am I missing? Wind, access. I mean, that's kind of the two big ones is like if you can set up in time and for him to walk right by you, that's it.
Well, I think the one big thing that we missed on, of which plays into a huge role through all of this, is where knowing your time frame of hunting the right days, of where I think of early season where you see everything on TV and it's kind of fantasy land, et cetera, where it's like once again it kind of plays into two different things of where it's like, what's your hunting approach? Are you doing a den and fault where you're going to kill that deer? That deer's going to get up regardless, relatively the same time frame within 15 minutes of whatever that window is. And sometimes, I've seen it where deer get up out of their bed and they'll hang out in the same spot for 30 minutes. He's been up for 30 minutes, but he's just been in the same spot, where it's like, when you factor in weather, if you're not hunting that deer in his bed and you're trying to hunt him in that transition area, or you're trying to hunt him coming out to that bean field. Well, if I had 7 days in the forecast and I was looking at the extended forecast, and I don't think I'd want to get out and hunt on that 95 degree day, but if all of a sudden it looks like Thursday is going to be in the 60s and we're getting that 20 degree swing of where it's going to be cool, that's the day I want to get out there, because that deer is going to get up probably 30 minutes early, get out the feed early. That's the day that I want to maximize if I had to pick one day to get out and go do, that's the day I'm going to probably get in and go sit. But once again, like it's different. Like if you're hunting that deer, your goal is to shoot him in his bed or be like within that bubble of, we'll just say 60 to 50 yards of his bed, and you're going to kill him in his bed. You could probably get away with hunting him on a hot, muggy day because you're going to be you're going to be in the bubble. You're going to be in the window.
So how do you because I've never had that, and maybe that just shows how little of scouting I've done, but I mean, like, how do you just know, like, you think about some of these spots that are just way in there, thick, nasty. Like, how do you know? How can you confirm that that there's a big buck that lives in there? I mean, is that buck just beds. Scouting? Is that just
scouting?
But like scouting from the truck, boots on the ground. Like, what does that look like? Because are we like? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was going to say, I can't really speak on it. I've tried to hunt like Dan for a while in the swamps, and I've seen it in the swamps. I mean, like, that's probably the most success I've had of like seeing that tactic work has been in the swamps, just because it's a little bit easier to lay out. Like, let's find a swamp up by me here so I can like throw an example here if that makes sense. You guys are going to see all my spots.
Don't show them. Just talk through them.
Okay. So like, I'm looking at this spot now. Like this is a fun spot. It's a couple miles from my house, but like where it's just different, where it's like, I just haven't cracked the code for egg country just because there's so many spots they can bed. But then again, there's not that many. It's just, they're in very unique spots. But I look at like marsh country when we're talking swamps. If I know there's a cedar island or an oak island in the middle of this, we'll just call it like a 40-acre swamp, and that's the only high ground that exists out there, the deer's probably not going to be bedded maybe off a point off of that island, but we'll just say like there's a little tiny cedar patch of like 3 cedars, and it's the size of a truck. Well, there might be 6 beds that are in there, and you'll know the difference because it isn't going to be 2 tiny beds and a bigger bed and another little bed and then a big bed. It's not a doe family group. You're going to see strategic spots around that peninsula point of where you're going to have, there's a big buck bed, big buck bed, big buck bed, big buck bed, of where different winds that are coming through, he's bedding in different areas of that, peninsula point or whatever it is, whatever side it is. And, just through time in the stand of glassing early season, or what, obviously you're not, if you can see from a swamp from a road, but most of the time you can't because you got to have high ground to look down in there. But like if you're scouting in there, you can assume that there's a big deer that's living in there. And if you're running cameras, et cetera, you can kind of start to put the puzzle pieces together where it's like, I know this deer's bedding somewhere in this, we'll just call it a 20-acre window. And then you start checking the boxes off of where it's, okay, he's not bedded off here, he's not bedded off here, this spot. And this is boots on the ground physically looking, and this is where it's only happened to me probably 2 or 3 times where it's like, okay, I'm guessing, I can't hunt there because there isn't a tree that I can hunt there. But, like this particular spot that I'm talking about, there's one oak tree that is about 75 yards from there that I can get up in. And I can get up there with a good wind. And I've had it 2 or 3 times that I've seen, not a shooter, but I've seen, a nice 3.5-year-old age class buck come from that bedding area. Where for me, that was kind of like a, light bulb went off where it's like, oh, okay, so that does work, of where, this is more specific, terrain specific, like hunting style, but of where it's like through due diligence of scouting, finding buck beds in the early season, you can find where these deer are living, and it's kind of a guess, but that's where Dan is so good at what he does is he lives out there, and he basically spends all of his time out there. But the crazy thing about Dan, he's done this in hill country, he's done it in farm country, he's done it in everywhere. He's a killer. And that's where I just think it's one thing of where it's another, what's another notch on your belt of where it's like, it is a good thing to learn of just having boots on the ground, just looking at sign and just analyzing beds of like, when you feel like if you've never crawled in a buck bed before and looked into it and like, why is this deer bedding here? And you finally crawl in one, you look out and you can see where it's like, well, this deer can see this trail, you can see this trail. Well, when the wind's coming from this way, well, he knows that he's covered on his backside here, and he can look out on this trail, and where he's living on this little island of where, I mean, it's impenetrable. Unless you're in that window, like that oak tree in particular, like I could have killed that deer 2 different times, but he just wasn't a deer I wanted to shoot.
Sure. Real quick before I want to close out with some quick fires, but when is there a time where it's too late to be that aggressive with your scouting? Now, this is probably more geared towards public land, because private land, you're probably, you're doing this. It's probably, like, it, right? So, like, at what point, or is it just like, no, like if you're scouting, you're hunting too in the, during the season?
I think there's 2 facets to that question. I will say on private ground where I've failed a couple times is that you should, if you're hunting private, you should know your farm. And what I mean by that is like, you're going to hunt the stands, you're going to want to hunt, you think about those old timers that Johnny always sits in this tree stand for gun season. He's always killed a deer out here, where it's like,
it's named after
there's probably some validity to that, to where it's like, maybe every 5 years it's a great rut funnel or whatever it is. But it's like in the early season or mid season, or we're talking like even like, into the pre-rut season, like if you're hunting private ground, hunt the fresh sign. Like if you have an idea of a stand you want to get to, but you just walked by 2 huge scrapes and walked by a fresh rub and walked by all the sign that just looks like it's on fire. And you're like, well, I want to get to here. Well, really, I mean, that's some pretty good intel right there, where it's like, this has happened to me at Grove Dolls a handful of times, where it's like, well, I should have sat back where I saw that sign, because like Dan says all the time too, it's like, once you walk through it, you already walked through it, then you might as well just keep going because you already walked through that sign. But hunt that fresh sign. But I think there's a fine line with private ground though too, where it's like, if you got to know your farm. Like if you booger your farm, is your farm going to be good for the next 2 weeks, or is your farm done? Did you blow out your entire woods? That's where I think you just have to understand how your farm's laid out and pressure, etc., and all that other stuff. But the fun thing about public, where it's like, every track of public's different, but the cool thing about public is hopefully where you live, there's multiple tracks of public, where I would say hunt super aggressive, because at the same point in time, it's like, if you blow out a spot, go hunt the new spot, go learn something new.
Might just get lucky, right? Mm-hmm. So going on that note, but I just want to hit up some quick fires, because you kind of started to allude to it maybe a little bit there. Mornings or evenings for early season?
Ooh, evenings.
Yeah. What?
Unless it is tight to a bed of where I know a buck is, because I've seen it through trail camera photos a handful of times the last 3-4 years on the farm in particular, where I would have dummy cameras out and I would just neglect areas, and I would just throw a dummy camera in there, and all of a sudden it was like going through September 16th to like September 28th, and it was like, wow, my number one shooter on the farm spent 5 hours, multiple days in this area from like 9 to 10 a.m. of where it's like, where was I? Where I still would pick evenings, just because that's usually your best bet.
Sure. Would you change to a morning? Like, let's say it's late September and you all of a sudden you have like a real solid cold front come through.
Yeah. I mean, if
would you hop on a morning?
For sure. I'm not afraid of hunting mornings regardless, just because time's limited when I can get in the stand in the early season. But
sure.
Usually my missions are a little bit different. Like, I look at like early season for me, I'd love to have a buck pattern. It just never seems to pan out for me the first 2 weeks of the season. So I'm always on doe patrol the first 2 weeks of the season. So regardless if I can get out morning and evening, I'm gonna do whatever I can. Just I'm dying to get in the stand already, so it's like I'm not gonna. If I only had one hunt, I would probably sit in evening. But if I'm home for the weekend, I'm hunting morning, evening for sure.
Yeah, I can think of a few morning, early season bow hunts at the farm, and now like looking back, like what. Why? I think like the one that sticks out to me most is recent. It was probably within the last 3 years, but it was like super foggy and hot.
Yeah,
and
I know what
humid,
you're talking about.
And it, like just a drizzle, and it was miserable.
I feel like in the mornings though, if you could get, once again, like I'm not a big believer in the moon, but at the same time, like if you could time it right with the front and just feeding patterns, like sometimes even those not super early mornings, but like those mid mornings of where you're back into like those, you're going to have to be back into like bedding at that point, but like back into that cover where those deer are transitioning, working their way back into that that mid morning afternoon bed, wherever they're going to stage up for the afternoon. You could have some pretty good hunts doing that.
Sure. So kind of going off of what we were talking about with those cold fronts or not, but how hot is too hot? Or is that a thing? Or is it just a personal preference?
We've hunted in some pretty miserable conditions, I will say, for early season. I don't know. It kind of goes back and forth. And once again, I think it depends on what your goal is. Like if it's 95 degrees out, there's probably better things you could be doing. You could be golfing, could be sitting, having a beer at the house. But at the same time, like if you want meat in your freezer, like probably go sit a water hole, go sit a pond, go sit something where, deer are going to be, creek or whatever that is, where deer are going to be go drinking water and go slock a doe. But, that's the only crappy thing about early season too, where it's like those days where it is just hot. So you better hope you put a good shot on a deer. You're not chasing a deer all night, because hopefully that meat's not spoiled.
Yeah. I can think of that doe I shot a couple of years ago, opening day, and it was, we gutted and processed her about as fast as I think I've ever seen it done, because it was so
I think Jake
hot.
was with, wasn't he?
Yeah, Jake came out, helped us out.
Yeah.
And I remember what Jake and I found she was dead.
She wasn't far.
Yards. But we're like, we need to just gut this thing because it is hot. Yeah. The mosquitoes were trying to take pick the deer up at that point. But thinking about it. Hot. Yeah, right. I was just saying it's got to be more of a comfort thing, because you think of some of the early season, mule deer hunting like out west, like it could be hot, and guys are still chasing them around, but
Yeah, I don't know. I look at like early season mule deer. I mean, like when I shot my velvet, it was 95 that day. It's hot. But that's a little different too. I mean, because it's like I knew that deer was there. We stocked with spot and stock and all that good stuff. But at the same time, it's like that's the only hard thing about sitting in a tree stand is, unless most of the time where it's like early season like that, or it's like you're kind of sitting on hoping a whim and a prayer that buck's are going to come through. When it's 95 degrees, your chances are probably slim to none. Now slocking a doe, I feel pretty confident, but at the same time, go kill a big buck, that's hard on those hot days.
Sure. And last one here, what is, when you make that shift, we're kind of jumping the gun here obviously, but when you make that shift from hunting an early season stand to more of a mid-season?
I feel like that comes kind of that transition just before the pre-rut starts really kicking in for me. I mean, it's all dependent on your farm. Now, talking public is a little different just because you're hunting fresh sign, you're hunting what you can find, and just based off of intel for you actually having boots on the ground and scouting. But, on the farm for us, it seems to be all the way. We've had years of where late in September has been really good. And then the woods kind of goes quiet for that two and a half weeks there to where it just seems like the deer are kind of going through that transition of where they're starting their testosterone starting to ramp up a little bit. They're establishing kind of those main core areas for the middle part of that season. But if I would say pick a time frame, I would probably say really my first time that I am starting to really get froggy of picking and choosing my tree stand setups is probably October 25th, but that's very dependent on weather fronts. So like if we have a really cold weather front coming through, probably October, anywhere from the 20th to that 31st of Halloween. Yeah, every woods is different. Like it seems for us like that if we can get that harvest moon that usually comes through sometime between there and a good stiff 2-day cold front, anywhere between the 20th and the 31st is a lights out hunt, especially in the evening time. It seems to be, unless you can be in the back area of a staging area and like a bedding area in the morning.
I like it, man. I'm trying to think of what else I got for you for quick fire, but I think that's it. Yeah, early season is just it's its own thing.
It's whatever you want it to be.
Yep. Yeah. How?
That's whatever you want it to be. I mean, I like early season. I do. It's just I've come to the what's the word for it? I've just come to realize with the time that I have, I don't have the time to put in the time, if that makes sense, for killing an early season buck. I wish I did. I just don't anymore with kids and with life, where it's like you got to put your time in. I mean, like kudos to the guys that have the ability to get out in glass bean fields, have the property that lays out the right way. Because like killing an early season deer is hard. I think your best chances if you're a guy that you don't have land. You don't have, the access to private ground with having immaculate food plots or having, big bean fields to hunt and swamps, man. Like, I think at the last 10 years of me bow hunting, like early season swamp hunting, it sucks because once again, the bugs are just vicious, but it's if you can find a good bed and you know where a deer's bedding, I think you got a pretty darn good chance of killing an early season buck.
Nice. That's good, man.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah. I'm pumped. I'm excited. I mean, it's we're getting there. That's all I know. It's going to be here in a short month. And before you know it, we'll be full into talking about ducks and bucks and be talking about hunts that we're having out in the field. And it's crazy.
It's Christmas.
It's Christmas. I'm just excited to shoot a doe, man. I like that is such a sigh of relief. Like when you can sling that first arrow and like harvest that first deer of the year, where it's like, all right, I still got it. Because I don't know for anybody listening or if the same thing for you, but like, man, the first 3 sits that you get, you're going to go through a couple things. You're going to find out that when you thought you were ready, you weren't ready because you're loud. You thought you had your setup dialed and it's not dialed. You bring too much stuff. And then that first time a deer comes in, it doesn't matter if it's a fork horn or a spike or if it's a doe or a fawn or whatever it is. My heart is still going a gazillion miles an hour. You would have thought it was a 200-inch deer. And it's like, all right. And then you shoot that first doe and you're like, okay, I still got it. I'm good.
Yeah.
I can
know what I'm doing.
Take a breath.
Yeah. Yeah, I have those conversations, I think, probably weekly when it's hunting season, where it's one week you're like, oh, I did really good, and then the next weekend you're like, what is going on here? I don't know what I'm doing at all. And then it's the rigmarole of hunt season.
And it's kind of bad to say. It's like you don't want to get like, maybe it's the bad wording for it, but like to get the bad sits out of the way,
Yeah.
where you kind of lock in.
Yeah.
Where it's like, all right, well, then when October 31st, like it's game time and you got to be locked in, where it's like, okay, well, you kind of feel confident in what you're doing again, because it's not like we're out there hunting in July or August, where it's like you're getting real time practice in.
Yep. Yeah, man. I'm just I don't know. I have a feeling that like I just have like this feeling about this upcoming season that's just like setting the bar high. I think. You know what I mean? Like, where it's like I think it's gonna be just like a lights out season because it's been. I mean, we've had decent the last couple of years, but I feel like
it's been tracking.
Yeah, I think it's
right direction.
We're trending. We're trending up.
Trending. You know what's the one funny thing is like I think of like once again you can make a hunt to whatever you want it to be to where it's like. You know, you can go out west and chase muleys. You can chase whitetails in the Midwest. You can, like chasing ducks. Like I got the experience of that with you guys last year, where it's like, it's fun to do a little bit of everything because it just makes you appreciate it. Like when we went on our North Dakota duck hunt, I needed that because it just showed me that I could have fun, not suffering in a deer woods, like shaking my head like, what am I doing, and like to where it's like, oh, we just had an incredible duck hunt and I still was still hunting,
Oh yeah that's the beauty of hunting, man. Like there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to hunt. Like even if you just complete like I'm only a deer hunter, great. Well, you know what, you can kill him with a bow. You can kill him with a gun. You can kill him with a muzzle loader. You could do it, 9 different ways with each of those too. So I mean, like, you just never stop learning, and that's just the thing that obviously keeps a lot of guys coming back. But
you will laugh at this. I did eat some of the duck from last year that we shot, and it brought me. I don't know if the first time that I made them, maybe I was just like. Maybe my nose was plugged or something, and it tasted incredible. And this one tasted good too, but like I tasted just straight mud pond swamp. I was just like,
some
all
greasy
right,
ducks.
All right.
Greasy ducks,
it took me right back to North Dakota. I was like, we're back.
That methane smell fuming from the mud, but yeah, no, I got a little bit left. I want to make up into some jerky or something for.
Nice.
Or like I kind of want to like wait too for like tree stand snacks. So I might give it a couple weeks before I start making up jerky. Otherwise,
are you out of venison?
Oh yeah, it's long gone. So
yeah, I think we went through our last little bit back in end of June. I think it was. Okay. I had like one roast left that I made into jerky, and that was it. Just before I brought some of the barley waters. That was it.
Nice. Yeah. That's a nice little treat.
It's a good snack until I think it was first day? No. Mm-hmm. Yeah, first day. It's gone. And I was like, well, then it's gone.
Good while it lasted.
Time to get more. Yeah, man, I'm excited. It's going to be fun. We're cutting down the days. And like I said, guys, for everybody that's listening, I think we're going to try to shoot for maybe that last week of August. We'll kick off our first ducks and bucks of the season. And it's here.
Go time.
Cool, guys. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith in the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith Podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith Podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.
I need a Holy Ghost awakening.